Good day, everyone. My name is Dr. Oscar Kureba. I'm a senior lecturer in the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the Botswana International University of Science and Technology, BIUST for short. So today in this workshop on peaceful applications of nuclear science and technology for sustainable development in Botswana, I will be presenting on applied nuclear physics research within my department. You can see here a beautiful photo of the BIUST administration blog. But today I'm hoping to convince you that BIUST is not just a pretty face as it looks here, but there's some serious research that we are currently conducting. So the outline of my presentation is like this, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through each bullet as these will pop up in the presentation anyway. So by way of introduction, the Applied Nuclear Physics and Technology subgroup is a subsidiary of a bigger group, which is the Applied Nuclear Science and Technology Group, only that it focuses on physics research. And then the bigger group involves other departments in science and also in engineering within the university. So this subgroup was created back in early 2017, shortly after myself and Professor Hillhouse joined the university. So we decided to come up with this research group, and as you shall see, we have really made a lot of progress in terms of churning out world-class graduates. So now the composition has since increased to include Dr. Dina, and also recently we were joined by Dr. Simon Marlins, who joined us last month. In addition, we have senior technician, Mr. Tapelo Mabaka. So as I have already mentioned, we have a good story to tell, having graduated 5 MSc graduates from within our group. So that's Mr. Mkhatitswane, Mr. Mutetswane, Miss Setso, Mr. Tikoloho, and Miss Sebinanyani. So currently we have 2 PhD students. As you can see, Mr. Mutetswane and Miss Setso went on to register for PhD with us after completion of their MScs. And then we also have 5 current MSc students, Mr. Butloye, Mr. Sibili, Mr. German, Mrs. Chinguo, and Miss Malet. In addition, we should also mention that we have supervised 7 BSc students in their final year projects within the department. And the last bullet there is referring to one of my former students who I co-supervised, now Dr. T. Solomon, who graduated this year as well. Of course, he was not registered in BIUST, but part of our activities involves co-supervising students from other universities as well. So this is another success story that we are proud of. So let me take you through the nuclear physics research areas. We have environmental radioactivity. We all know that Botswana is a mining country, and mining activities actually disrupt the balance of radioactivity in nature. So there is a need for some research to quantify the amount of radiation, particularly where people live. In this case, we focus our research mainly on the Serule area. Why Serule? Because there is going to be a uranium mine, and we all know that uranium is radioactive. So the idea is to do a baseline study before the mining starts. Another area is accelerated technologies. If you followed Professor Hillau's presentation on BIMST, he did mention that we have a big dream to own an accelerator facility. And obviously, we have started to do some human capacity development in that area. So one of our MSc students focused on that, as you shall see. Then we have radioisotope production. Again, the accelerator can lead to the production of radioisotopes that are used in medical applications. So We have had an MSc student working on that as well. Then detector development, we have 2 students who worked on this separate projects um, in detector development, which is also another area that we focus on. Then finally, last but not least, the fundamental of nuclear physics. While it is not exactly applied, there is a lot that goes into it. For example, you need to develop the software, the hardware, the firmware associated with experiments on nuclear physics. So that's where the applied uh, section comes into play. And also we can get some spin-offs from such research. So obviously, we cannot do all this alone. We have lots of collaborators that we rely on or that we work with. For example, we have all these Vit University, Itemba Labs, JINR, Northwest University, TU Darmstadt, uh, European Center for Nuclear Research in Switzerland, West of York. And one thing to note is that most of these collaborators are from outside Botswana, but we have recently joined hands with the University of Botswana and Radiation Protection Inspectorate as we are now co-supervising students with Dr. Mashaba from UB and also Dr. Solomon from RPI. So now let me take you through some of the completed postgraduate research projects. As I have mentioned, 5 of our students have since completed. So that's how who worked on a project in the detector development domain, supervised by myself and co-supervised by Professor Melado Fitz. Then we have Adolf, who worked on radioisotope production field, supervised by Professor Hillhouse, and also Dr. Batlokwa from chemistry department within BIUST, and co-supervised by Dr. Dion of Itemba Labs. Then we have Otsile Tikoloho, who graduated in 2020, supervised by Prof. Hillhouse and Dr. Nemlodi in Itemba Labs. The last 2 were on environmental radiation measurements. That is Refilwe, who looked at radon measurements in houses of Serole, and also Babedi, who looked at soil sample analysis on samples taken from Serole as well. So just to give you a clue on what exactly the research entails, for example, this was one of the projects by Hao, who irradiated some plastic scintillators, different types, blue emitting and green emitting, to see the amount of radiation tolerance that these plastic scintillators could endure. The idea was to try and come up with a candidate that can be used uh, at the European Center for Nuclear Research in terms of developing the detector material for the Atlas detector. I will not go too deep into the technical details since all these projects that I've mentioned, this one, um, they are going to be presented by these former students in workshop 2. Thank you. So now what is important to note is that this work led to a good publication in this Journal of Nuclear Instruments and Methods in Physics Research B, where you have Gaude, myself, and some collaborators from JINR, Leeds, and Timber Labs. Another example is the one by Sibili Mswakaye. You can see him there in this photo. He was carrying out his project in Russia on the development of a prototype for detecting large diamonds in kimberlite. So this has very good possible applications here in Botswana. Like I've already mentioned, Botswana is a mining country. We can get diamond detectors that can be used in our mining industry here in Botswana, then that would be great. Again, this work led to a publication in this journal, Instruments. Okay. Also, we move on to environmental radioactivity research. I'm not going to go technical on this since I've already mentioned all this is going to be uh, zoomed into in workshop 2. So in these pictures, we have soil sample collection in the top left picture, that's two of our former MSc students, Babedi and Donovan, together with a Serule resident, Akanyang. By the way, we also engage residents there in Serule, and we make them part of our research team and reward them accordingly. In the middle, top row, we have Refilwe recording the GPS coordinates. You can see that's me there holding the GPS instrument, and another Serule resident collecting a soil sample. Then what normally happens is we take these samples to Northwest University. In the top right picture, that's myself and a colleague there at Northwest University doing some measurements of gamma radiation from the soil samples. Then looking at the bottom row, bottom left, that's myself and the Serule resident mounting some radon detection equipment in houses in Serule. So that was Refilo Setso's MSc, and Refilo is that lady looking curiously at what we were doing and also recording the voltage levels in the instrument there. The last picture, we have myself, Refilo, Khao, and Wabedi after one of the field trips. Obviously, we don't just do nuclear physics, we also have time for selfies and for eating. Okay. So that kind of research in terms of soil sample analysis has been published here. This was a collaboration between BIUST and Professor Usman and her MSc student at Wits University, together with Dr. Mavunda from South African Nuclear Energy Corporation. So, like I mentioned, we won't leave fundamental nuclear physics behind. This is just one example where you can actually go deeper and do hardcore nuclear physics, one of many. So I will not bore you with the technical details as well. Like I mentioned, this will be presented in workshop 2. And that led to a publication in this high impact journal, Physics Letters B. So now for current research projects, we have an evaluation of the level of naturally occurring radioactive materials in Botswana by myself, funded by BIUST Initiation Grant for staff. And we have these other several MSc student projects and also a PhD there by Adolf, being supervised by Professor Hillhouse and Dr. Stein with Timber Labs. And this is a continuation of current research projects. Some of them are nearing completion. The students are finalizing their write-ups. So we hope to graduate 2 or 3 more students next year. The last projects here, they border between materials physics research and nuclear physics research, supervised by Dr. Nikodisi and Dr. Muiva within our department, together with some colleagues at Timber Labs in South Africa. Some recent publications, if anyone is interested in reading them, you can have a look when we give you the slides. You can go through some of these publications. We have 4 here. These are all only from 2020, 2021. We have about 8 just from 2020, 2021. Of course, there is more if we extrapolate backwards. And then now on training and presentations, this is just to show you that we expose our students to the international community and not just within the corridors of BIUST. On the top left, we have a screenshot of a report by Babedi after she attended a 3-week training on the African School of Fundamental Physics and Applications. Top right, that's Pearl Maleta, who recently completed this exciting project with researchers in Dubna, Russia. And at the bottom, with so many people, these are some of the people that we work with in the nuclear fraternity. If you look closely, you will see me there in the front row wearing a white shirt. And this was after the presentation that I did. This ANSTT workshop has become an annual event since 2018, and our staff members and students normally go there to do presentations. So this is just a few of the many, because we have some students who went to the South African Institute of Physics to give presentations on their research projects, and also contributions of members of staff and students to the STEM festival, which normally takes place every year here in Botswana. So, and we also have a good story to tell in terms of making news, making the headlines. So, in this particular news article, you can see in the picture, second from left is Adolf, one of our former MSc students. Then we also have Refilwe, the lady in the blue top and the black jacket. And Otsile was also part of this team that went to Russia to do some nuclear research summer practice together with some students from South African University. Our students made headlines because three of them won a prestigious award, which is called the Moscovium Badge, which is given to excelling students, and we were so proud of them. Also making headlines was the fact that Gao was the first Botswana to do his MSc at the European Center for Nuclear Research. And he was so excited. That was an article. And Dr. Solomon here, who was featured on the Ministry of Tertiary Education, Research, Science and Technology website for completing his PhD recently. And of course, COVID-19 is with us, and our team members were not left behind. As you can see, Osile there in the top left picture, he's the manager of the BIUST team. So BIUST partnered with WITS to develop a dashboard for the COVID-19 pandemic. So visualization of the statistics, how the COVID pandemic was spreading, and also in the picture, top right is Professor Hillhouse together with Professor Bruce Melado from Wits University, and at the bottom we have Adolf on the left and Hao on the right. These people contributed immensely to the development of this dashboard. So in summary and outlook, I can say, yes, we do have a good story to tell, having graduated 5 MSCs and still counting. And according to Prof. Hillhouse, BIUST has more MSc students in physics compared to what you would find at the University of Stellenbosch. Okay. Then in terms of outlook, we need to push for the development of our own research facilities here in Botswana. Yes, we've been a new university, but we are not so new anymore. So I refer you to the presentation by Professor Hillhouse on the Botswana Institute of Nuclear Science and Technology, where our plight can actually be scrutinized further. There is also a need for local collaborations, since you saw that most of the collaborators are from international institutions outside Botswana. So charity should begin at home, because then obviously funding is a challenge to any institution, but we can try to partner with local institutions to do some applications for funding together, and hopefully we hope to get some funding for training for students. I would like to acknowledge the Directorate of Research, Development and Innovation, because it availed some initiation grants to staff members and also postgraduate research grants to our students. Otherwise, without this, we would probably not have graduated any student by now. Then the Directorate of International Linkages and Partnerships, always eager to help us when we go knocking on their doors for funding, especially when we are doing some international travel. They normally fund our travel costs. And I would also like to thank the collaborators that I've mentioned for availing their human resources, expertise, and research facilities, mostly free of charge, for more information, you can contact me on this phone number or that email address. I thank you. This is the end of my presentation. Time for comments, questions. Thank you.